Hello, welcome back to the I've Been Dumbed experience, where you learn something once or twice a month. And by that, I mean whenever I feel like uploading. Anyways, here's a banger. It's definitely lacking something, and that something is background noises. Now, it's a common belief in music that there are infinite ways to do things, like, you can be creative in a number of ways. Wrong. And I'm going to show you all of the possible ways you can be creative in dubstep. Well, I mean, at least with background noises. So with this sound, it just goes like... How do you make it? It's easy. You just serum. It has an EQ so it doesn't clash with the lows. It has a reverb so it sits in the background of the mix. It has an EQ doing the same thing. And then I put on a compressor because, in general, when you're making background noises, the more compressed they are, the more they'll sit better in the back of a mix. Okay, this next one, Boneless Cern. I think it sounds good because it doesn't really clash with wubs in general because it's such a reverbed out, high frequency sound. And this is how you make the boneless pizza mabobber. This first LFO is at a slow speed, and it's modulating the pitch of this oscillator. And what's important about it is that it's going up and down an octave over a bar. And here's where I used to mess up. When you want to go up an octave, you usually do 12, right? Well, the thing is, in Serum, 12 in the mod matrix is not 12 semitones. So in order to do semitones, you have to do 12 ST. And then it actually puts it to 9, which is strange, but yeah. And this LFO is making this oscillator go up and down in pitch really fast. And it's to the point where it just adds texture instead of sounding like a pitch modulation. And it's easier to hear the difference if I don't have reverb on. And so a good thing to keep in mind is that you can change up how fast these sounds play, and you can apply that concept to any of the sounds I'll show you. So here's an example. Yeah, so cool. Here's another siren. So that sounds pretty cool. I made copy this from Nasco's stream, and here's how to make it. You just have a saw wave that's going up and down in pitch over 2 bars, and then basic shapes, we got a square wave, and that's just doing the same thing, but a different pattern, and it's going at 1 bar. Which is a good idea for your background noise. You don't want all your background noises to be playing at the same speed or at the same LFO. Remember dubstep in 2012 when people were like, hey, I know what we should use as a dubstep bass? Lasers. Thankfully this all changed because in 2013, people stopped going to music festivals because whenever they heard this noise, they thought their alarm was going off, so they'd leave the music festival and they were no longer funded anymore. Since then, producers learned to turn the volume down and use it as a background noise instead. How you actually make it is, yet again, a 16-time saw wave. And what's important here, that changes this sound from the other sirens, it has a pitch and a volume envelope that starts every 1/4 of a bar. So this pitch LFO makes the sound go from a low to a normal pitch really fast. And that gives it this like plucky like whoop whoop sound effect. Okay, here's what I mean. And this volume LFO is just making it plucky. So this next sound is really good for when you're transitioning into a new section of your song, because instead of playing throughout the entire drop, like a siren, this would be used at the end of it. So this sound is similar to the last one I showed you, except it has a pitch modulation going from a low to a high pitch over 4 bars to give it that riser feel. And if you want to copy your screen, here you go, here's all the parameters. This next sound is similar to the last two, except it has more of a laser feel. I even called it whoop whoop dubstep drop because it sounds like a whoop whoop laser, and you put it in the dubstep drop. Honestly, it's the same thing as a poppy rise, but with slightly different parameters, which this is very similar to making dubstep wubs. All you need to do to make unique sounds is just copy a preset and then change up a few things. Okay, speaking of presets, let's go over the one sound that you've heard in every generic song since 2012. This art. The F minor chord used in dubstep drops. Now, there's nothing wrong with the sound. It's very good for filling space and keeping your song upbeat and whatnot. But like, it's been in so many songs. It's so overdone. Thankfully, there's a way to change it up and make it not lazy. I think people love doing the whole like chord thing and then going into this thing and like doing this. So the first way to make it not generic is to make your own pattern for your art. And instead of going, you know, the same pattern every time, you can switch it up and make it sound different a little bit. And so another cool thing you can do with your ARPs is turn them into pads. How do you do it? Go to your thing, go to consolidate, click the thing, drag the thing, go to blur, go to thing, accept, listen. Anyway, speaking of generic overused garbage, here's this sound. That's right, another F minor chord, staple of the whole dubstep genre. And so, just like the ARP I showed you, I'll show you a unique way of making this sound good in your song. Up next, we have horns. So horns sound really good in dubstep because they add an emphasis on every 2 or 4 bars, and it really adds to the flow of a song. And so this is literally the essence of filling out space in your drop. It's just adding noise in your drop. Just do it at a really low volume. You'll never really hear it, you'll just know that it's filling out stuff. So a cool thing you can do to add suspense in your songs is to play notes like this that are 1 semitone apart, because it's really suspenseful and dissonant. So for this next tip, we're basically using a sidechain LFO as an instrument rather than just using it to make room for a kick or a snare. And this sounds really good as a background element because it's basically a small riser that's happening all the time. Alright, let's get to everyone's favorite background element, the people that say stuff like hey, or yeah, or skrrr, so you know when to bop your head. So my main tip with vocals in the background is that you can use stuff like reverb or delay to make them sound unique. Like with this sound, added some like weird delay in serum. Make sure it's sidechained, compressed, and make sure it has some reverb or delay on it to make it sound like it's in the background. And so for this next one, you can literally just make any tonal sound and add reverb to it or blur that sounds like this. And it's pretty simple. All I did to make that was have 2 saw waves, and I added reverb and OTT. It's pretty much there. All we have to do next is render it and then reverse it. So it doesn't sound completely there yet. All we have to do is render it again and add a blur tool to it. I mean, this next one's pretty easy. You just find a string sample and then pitch it up a lot. It just adds suspense to your drop. And if you want to go full death metal in your dubstep track, you just put these crash cymbals every half a bar. Again, 2014 dubstep. Who can forget the make it burn them? Okay, adding a wub, reverbing it, and then reversing it can give you sounds like this. That sounds pretty cool. Okay, we can't talk about background noises without white noise. Here's your basic whooshy thing. But here's how to make it unique for you. Add volume automation. Add some panning. Add a bit crusher. Add volume automation, but make it sound cool. So this next one is really cool for dubstep because it's like really high energy and it fits with the whole dubstep like angry vibe. This is literally just like a few sine waves that are going up in pitch. Virtual Riot uses it in a lot of his songs, and I got this sample from Crow with his free sample pack, and it sounds just like the one that Virtual Riot uses, especially when you add this EQ to it. I think it sounds really good. Speaking of Virtual Riot and sample packs, you can get a lot of cool ideas for unique background noises just by looking through sample packs, and what's even more unique is combining them into one sample of your own, like this. No one's really gonna notice if you use this in your song, especially if you combine them into your own samples. And so for example, if you add an assortment of these samples and put them into one big old sample and then turn the volume down, you get something like this. And you can just copy and paste this sound and put it into your songs, because like no one really cares if you copy a sample pack background noise. And then you can just make your own sample pack of your own unique background noises that you took inspiration from and whatnot. If this video helps you out, cool. Just kidding, I gotta add in the part where I say like and subscribe because that helps with YouTube engagement. So yeah, like the video if this helped you out, and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, and I'll catch you guys next time.